Where do you see yourself 8 years after high school? All of us will take different paths after we leave this place. Different jobs, different careers, different universities. So where do you see yourself 8 years after high school? It's a question we are able to ask because we live in a time that allows us to choose. But 90 years ago, the students who sit in the same seats you do now did not have these choices. After the First World War, Palmerston North Boys High School introduced a military training program called the Cadet Corps, which were a group of students who underwent training during school time to eventually enter the military. This is something that the Palmerstonian of 1931 claims most students took part in. Old boys at this school in the 1930s and 40s lived in a time of war, where the only respected path of young men was to enter the military and fight for king and country, serve the motherland. They did not have the choices that we do now. In the end, around 500 to 600 old boys served in the Second World War, 136 of them tragically losing their life. We will hear the names of those who passed read out today, and among them is the name of a man with an incredible story, one that is shocking, confronting, but extremely inspiring. But first, I'd like to paint a picture for you. Imagine you are alone, frantic, flailing in the ocean. You look in the sky above you and gunfire and explosions are everywhere. All around you is debris and flames. The cries of thousands calling to God for mercy, calling to their mothers for one last embrace. Now try and take courage and have heart. Try and look for a chance of survival. This is what old boy Phillip Wallace Smith faced on the 4th of March 1942. Phillip Wallace Smith was one of us, and he wasn't all that different from many of us. Born in 1915, Phillip came to Palmerston North Boys High School as a Year 9, or third form as it was called at the time. Beginning in 1929, Phillip wore the same uniform as us, walked the same grounds as us. You and your friends have sat in classes and played games in the same place that Phillip likely did 92 years ago. While at school, he took full advantage of the co-curricular opportunities on offer. Phillip was a member of our reading club, as well as the first 15 rugby team in 1931. But the school histories do not simply describe him as a well-rounded sportsman. He was also a successful academic student, making the academic honours list in 1930 as a Year 10. In 1930, he was also the recipient of the Basilio Memorial Scholarship. Phillip would leave Boys High in 1932, however, when his family moved to Whangarei, and it is unclear what things took up his life in the next 8 years until our records would mention Phillip again. By all accounts, P.W. Smith was a student with great potential. He applied himself in many areas of school life and served the school as a leader in sports and academics. He is someone who likely had the world as their oyster. But the time that Phillip lived in would decide his story for him. 1939. New Zealand, along with Great Britain, declares war on Nazi Germany and the Axis powers. Along with economic and defensive considerations, New Zealand saw it imperative to support Great Britain and defend the motherland, to stop the evil Nazi regime. The war was seen as a chance to boost national pride and identity, and such benefits would come, but at a tremendous cost. It would cost the life of thousands of men just like Phillip Smith. Phillip, in 1940, 8 years after his time at Boys High, enlisted in Scheme B for the Royal Navy and left for England in October. He trained on the HMS Ganges, where he was a class leader, gained high-class marks and excelled in swimming and other sports. He was then posted to the Dutch East Indies, arriving at Batavia in 1942. He would be reported missing until word was received that Sub-Lieutenant Smith was in Singapore at the time of its fall in March of 1942. He was evacuated from Singapore on a ship that was quickly bombed by the Japanese, resulting in Phillip finding himself desperate in the water. He took to one of the smaller lifeboats, Philip was badly wounded and felt as though he was not likely to make it as a result of his wounds. He felt that he should give another a chance to fight another day. And as there were still survivors in the water, he made the ultimate decision. Filled with courage and selflessness, Philip Smith dived overboard to make room for one of the men left in the water, sacrificing his life for another's. He would die on the 4th of March, 1942. These final moments of Philip's life show us what kind of man he was. The kind to put others before himself, the kind to act with integrity, humility and courage in the face of unspeakable horrors and danger. To face such odds and not let the fear win is the mark of a good man. His story is one that is frighteningly confronting, asking the question, what kind of man am I? And I feel it is asking all of us that very same question. Philip was a man who was only a part of this school for a short time, but embodied what it represents until his final moments. When you leave this school and go out into the next chapter of your life, will you carry with you these values of industry, integrity, humility, pride, respect and courage? Will you be a man of outstanding character? In our life, we will find ourselves in moments that test who we are and what we're made of. Our life at times will feel hopeless and desperate, and it is then that we have courage. At times, our life will feel like we have a mountain to climb. We have so much to do with such little time. It is then that we have industry. Or the moments when we do succeed, that is when we have humility. This school has worked to instill in us the qualities of a good man. So in the words of Marcus Aurelius, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Just like Philip Smith was. At this time of the year, in this time of our lives, it is important to not only look at the world around us, but also to look back and remember those who gave their life for our freedom, especially those who we have such a connection to. I encourage all of you to reflect today about how different this school would have been at times of war, and how different our lives would be today if old boys like Philip Smith did not make the sacrifices they did. So now, as you go out and walk between the crosses, underneath the Gallipoli oak, as the last post is played as you stand at attention, let their memory sit with you. Let the example they set drive us to be better men, to support each other and think of each other. We must remember them. We will remember them. May the souls of all the departed, through the grace of God, rest in peace. Thank you.